Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 3 of the Vuelta a España. Stage 3, the first big mountain stage here at the Vuelta a España, and that's why I love Spain. They start the mountains early in this Grand Tour. It's not like the Tour de France where you got to go through a first week of flat, nasty, crazy stages of big 170, 80-pound riders in front of me. They're stringing it out in the crosswinds all day long. Then they throw in some cobblestones just to cause chaos all over the place. By the time you get to the first mountain stages in the Tour de France, my legs are already done. Now you come to the Vuelta a España, though, it's a whole different story, right? When I won in 2013, it was the second day that had a mountain stage. Here in 2023, it's the third stage that has the first mountain stage. 158 kilometers, about 100 miles in distance, 2 categorized climbs, and the last one's a summit finish. First climb, 9 kilometers, 5% average. It's a little bit steeper than that though, and they've been climbing for something like 30K before they get into Andorra proper at about 50 kilometers to go. The last climb, after a crazy descent coming off the first categorized climb, the last one is going to be a little bit nastier climb because it's 8 kilometers long and just under 9%. But it has sections, we're talking 13, 14%, and they're all near the top where it starts getting switchbacks and really hard. So you know the finish of today's stage is going to have a battle amongst the GC general classification favorites if everybody wants to test their legs here on stage 3. And we got to remember, this could be a breakaway that goes all the way to the finish of the race. Now, keep in mind when you start stage 3, in terms of order of teams having to do work, Jumbo-Visma, out of the 5 big teams here at the Vuelta a España, Jumbo-Visma have to do most of the work to begin with because they have 2 of the big-time favorites, Jonas Vingegaard, Primoz Roglic. Second team to come on the front of the Peloton, if they have to, is Soudal Quick-Step because they have Remco Evenepoel, and he's the defending champ of the red race leaders jersey from 2022. That's the second team you should see on the front. Third team to go on the front, UAE Team Emirates. Well, they've come pretty stacked too. They have Ayuso, who went 3rd last year, and Almeida, who went podium at the Giro d'Italia this year. So that's the third big team. Fourth big team when today's stage starts, maybe not after today's stage, it's going to be Team Ineos. Fifth team that you would think to do the work here has got to be the Spanish team Movistar. Keep in mind, if Jumbo-Visma's up the road, that means the next team in order should be Soudal Quick-Step. If both those teams are up the road, that means UAE team members have to do the work. If those 3 teams are up the road, that means, of course, Ineos should have to do the work. And if those 4 are up the front, that means Movistar should have to do the work. That's the way tactics play if you're racing intelligently, and that 195, 205 heartbeats not affecting your tactical sense when you get on the last 2 mountain stages. All right, let's get into the stage. Now, when the lights come on, we're talking about 90 kilometers to go. 11 riders are up the road. 11 riders and 2 guys are a threat. I want you to focus on Leonard Kamna from Bora Hansgrohe. He's a threat because he can climb really good, he can win the stage, and he can possibly get the race leader's red jersey. Next guy, though, that's a big threat. It's got to be Damiano Caruso from Bahrain Victorious, and he has Sutherland in there, his teammate. Now that means at just under 25 seconds on the general classification, Damiano Caruso is a big threat because, let me remind you, we go a few years back, he went 2nd at the Giro d'Italia and gave none other than Egan Bernal a good run for his money to almost overtake him on the last mountain stages of that year's Giro, but he ended up finishing 2nd with a mountain stage victory in a couple years back at the Giro. Now, that was back before Egan Bernal had crashed into the bus in Colombia and his form has dropped since. But Egan Bernal, when he won that Giro d'Italia, was spectacular all the way up to those last 2 mountain stages there where Caruso got better. Egan Bernal came down. Now, let's get back into the racing. 11 guys up the road, 5.5 minutes. Then we look at the cameras back up. We see it's Jumbo-Visma chasing. Why are they chasing? Well, they're the number 1 of the 5 best teams up there riding, right? So it's their job, if they want to win the general classification and take the Giro, the Tour de France, and the Tour of Spain, they got to ride. Now, all of a sudden, Quick-Step get on the front. Quick-Step, Remco Evenepoel, Peter Siri, what are you doing on the front? The director sportives, all you guys are knuckleheads. There is no reason to be on the front right now coming into Andorra on the flat parts of this stage 3 here and help Jumbo-Visma. If the gap goes way out, then maybe get on the front, but you have no problem if you're Remco Evenepoel and you want to let Damiano Caruso get the race leader's red jersey or Leonard Kamna. In fact, that would probably help you out in the long run when you're battling against Primoz Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard in the later mountain stages here of the Vuelta a España. But They don't believe me. They didn't watch Beyond the Coverage where I said do not work with Jumbo-Visma. So we see Peter Siri up there and we see Dylan Van Barle. These two guys are riding full gas through the slight cross headwind at the front. Now, I hate these kind of stages too, unless you're one of the 5 top teams and you're one of the captains of the team, because then you got someone to look after you. But in 2014 at the Tour de France, while riding for Lampre, we went through one of these stages through the valley where it was a head crosswind like that. I had no teammates looking after me. I saw TJ Van Gardner from BMC sitting right in front of me with all his teammates lined up while I'm sitting in the gutter burning watts left and right all over the place. But if you got your team wrapped around you, this kind of head crosswind's not really a problem, but it is a problem for the guys at the back of the peloton, believe me. Now, with those two guys riding as we come into Andorra, they're going to knock off 2 minutes from the breakaway of 11. That breakaway 11, you guys are all knuckleheads. If only 2 guys back there, Dylan Van Barle, Peter Siri from Soudal Quickstep, can bring down 2 minutes on the flats and the slight uphill grade into Andorra on 11 guys, you guys have not done your job and you're all knuckleheads and let us down in terms of how much anticipation we could have had if that gap was a little bit bigger, wondering what was going to happen. Well, the 11 guys get into the climbing proper with about 30 kilometers to go when we hit the first categorized climb. Things just light up right away, and we're going to end up with 3 riders in the front here trying to battle for the stage victory and KOM points. Those 3 riders were going to be Damiano Caruso, who's a threat on general classification. Leonard Kamna's up there, and Sepulveda from Lotto. Lotto Destiny riders having a great day here, but the gap is still coming down to the group behind. I told you, Peter Siri and Dylan Van Barle were on the front, but once they get into Andorra, that's when things start getting nervous in the peloton under 50 kilometers to go, and it starts going curb to curb with about 40K to go as we're coming into the first climb for the GC favorites back there in the peloton. Now up front, those 3 riders are working well together. They're going to come up to the first KOM. We're going to see Sepulveda win the sprint there, and he's going to put himself in the KOM jersey after the end of today's stage 3 finishes. Behind, what's happening as we're coming up to climb? Well, we see Hessink did the best job of all the domestique coming into the first climb here as he's leading in hardcore for Jumbo-Visma. We see Jonas Vingegaard just a little bit back off of the wheel of his teammate Hessink's. And then Primoz Roglic is a little bit further back in the group, but Remco Evenepoel's all over Jonas Vingegaard's wheel as the first climb here on stage 3 starts proper. Then what happens? Well, the next knuckleheads come into play. It's called DSM. DSM, what were you guys thinking? You guys are riding the front. You're drilling it on the front. You got 3 guys pulling on the front for Jumbo-Visma. I don't believe I've ever talked about DSM coming to the front and doing a bunch of work for Jumbo-Visma. Now, I can tell you what their MO is. They're trying to drill it on the front, and then they're going to try to launch Romain Bardet, but that's a ridiculous tactic. There's no reason to ride the pace any faster than it has to be. You want it to go slower, then you want to attack and have the pace slow. So when you're attacking, and then maybe Quick-Step's Remco Evenepoel and Jumbo-Visma, who would have been riding the front up at the beginning of this climb and maybe tired some domestiques out once you start attacking with Romain Bardet and Max Pooley, maybe they let you go because Remco Evenepoel's looking after the 2 Jumbo-Visma guys, and the 2 Jumbo-Visma guys are looking after Remco Evenepoel. Either way, DSM is a bunch of knuckleheads. They'll ride on the front, and then we'll see the first attack out of the GC favorites comes from Jay Vine, UAE team members. Not a tactic I'd employ, but somebody's got to be first. I would prefer, if I'm UAE team members, to save my pure climbers, because once we start getting in the second week of the Vuelta, maybe you can use Jay Vine as a threat. In today's stage, though, I would prefer to have Jumbo-Visma on the front more, and they haven't even really touched the front with the exception of Hessink. Now, that group gets brought back right away from the attack there of Jay Vine, Romain Bardet, and Wilco Kelderman. Once that group gets brought back and we're just under 2 kilometers to the top, I believe about 1.6, Romain Bardet from DSM is going to throw in another attack. He gets brought back as Quick-Step, Quick-Steps all over the front, bringing everything back. He had some company up there with Wilco Kelderman, and Wilco Kelderman didn't want to do any work with Romain Bardet. When we look further back, like I said, Quick-Steps, Matteo Cattaneo on the front. They had about 6, 7 Quick-Step guys on the front, so it looks like Remco Evenepoel has a shot here of having some climbers because Jan Hertz is still there, James Knox is in the field, and Vervaeke is up there too. Now, with Matteo Cattaneo pulling everything back over the top, we look UAE team members going over the top of the first KOM. They got control of the peloton until Quick-Step take over going down the descent. Remco Evenepoel wants to be in a fine position here, dropping down the technical, difficult, fast speeds, lefts and right hairpins, all the way down this descent into Andorra. Now, up front, what's happening? Well, they went over the top with 3, like I said, and it was Sepulveda that took maximum KOM points. But coming down the descent, Sepulveda's having all kinds of problems. He gets dropped off the back, and we see only 2 riders at the front. We didn't even get to see him get dropped off the back. He came off so quick down the descent. But we see up front, Leonard Kamna's still there, and Damiano Caruso's taking maximum risk on a descent that's wet and dry in places, so you know it's a little bit technical. They'll come down to the bottom of the descent with about 10 kilometers to go. Their gap's at about 1:20, 1:30 seconds on the Peloton behind. The Peloton now is starting to grow in size. Guys, it's getting massive. Probably about 60 riders back there in the Peloton as they come into the little valley before they start the last and final climb. Only about 1.52 kilometer valley there before you start the final climb with 8.3 kilometers to go. Up front, the 2 riders, Leonard Kamna and Damiano Caruso, hit the climb together, and they got about a 1:20 gap on the field behind. Leonard Kamna is starting to light up Damiano Caruso all over the place. He's throwing in massive accelerations. Caruso, second at the Giro d'Italia a few years back. He's just setting some tempo and dieseling his way back up to Leonard Kamna each time. When he gets back up to Leonard Kamna's wheel, Leonard Kamna's had it. He wants him to come through. Leonard Kamna, the guy's just got dropped and just barely made it back on. He's not going to. So we see Damiano Caruso sit on, and Leonard Kamna's going to light him up a second time. Damiano Caruso comes back again for Bahrain victorious. This time he's going to come through and start doing a little bit of work because the gap back there is extending to about 1:30 on the GC favorites, but the Peloton's not going that fast. Guys, they're curb to curb. At 4.4 kilometers to go, you look at the Peloton, the curb to curb, look at the back of the Peloton. You see that guy in the yellow jacket there? He's doing about the same speed all 60 of these guys in the Peloton are doing. So you know it's not a drag race up this last and final climb of stage 3 of the Vuelta a España, but it's going to change soon. With 4 kilometers to go, Jay Vine gets on the front. He starts driving it hard. He's got Ayuso on his wheel. Only problem is Almeida's having a hard day here. He's a little further back in the Peloton. Jay Vine's starting to blow guys off the back. The group's going to split in half, and we're going to start seeing a selection of real GC contenders up at the front holding on to Jay Vine's wheel. Let's go back up to 3 kilometers to go and talk about the 2 breakaway leaders that are still holding about a 59-second gap on the Peloton behind. Well, now it's Leonard Kamna's time to throw in another attack. This is his 3rd or 4th attack going up this climb. It's 3 kilometers to go, and this time Leonard Kamna, with his acceleration, pops Damiano Caruso from Bahrain victorious. Caruso gets back and gets wrapped up real quick from Jay Vine, who's still going full gas and got the group down to about 15 riders. With this attachment here of Damiano Caruso, we're going to see the first attack as Jay Vine moves over and Ayuso throws in attack. With the attack, look who's covering it. It's none other than the Tour de France champ himself, Jonas Vingegaard from Jumbo-Visma. He goes around the drops riders. He goes around Jay Vine, as he's trying to close the gap up there to Ayuso, and he closes it immediately. Ayuso started looking left over his shoulder, looking back, and when he does, guess what? The American Flying Eagle, Sepp Kuss. He's from this region, right? He lives in Andorra. He's from America, lives in Andorra, so he wants to put on a show. He throws in acceleration through the left bend. Ayuso can't do anything about it, and there goes Sepp Kuss flying the coup. Now, just behind Sepp Kuss' attack, we're going to see another UAE Team Emirates rider. It's Soler, the Solerism, throwing in attack. He bridges up as they're going into the right turn. He's closing up there, just up to Sepp Kuss. Sepp Kuss is closing up to Leonard Kamna, who's solo, still trying to win today's stage. And then behind, what's happening? Well, the gas comes off of the group of favorites there. And as they're backing off, look, it's the Ineos duo back there trying to close the gap to bring that front group and the second group back together to get about 25 riders up there with the GC favorites. Now, Sepp Kuss going full gas. Soler's trying to close. He's basically on his wheels. They come out of the right hairpin turn. Then look who's chasing. That's Kian Utebrooks from Bora Hansgrohe. Kian Utebrooks, you're a young kid, but you are a knucklehead, but you got some flying legs in form here at your first big Grand Tour here, the Tour of Spain on stage 3, first mountain stage. Kian Utebrooks is pulling. I'll go back later and talk about how ridiculous this tactic is, but he's pulling hard, and then Movistar's Mas is going to start pulling too to try to bring back Soler and Sepp Kuss. Now we're going into about 1.7 kilometers to go. Sepp Kuss has wrapped up the lone leader up there, Leonard Kamna, and as he wraps him up with 1.5 kilometers to go, Soler throws an attack, but everything was coming back together. All the groups, all the GC favorites, the breakaway guys, All of it as it's coming back together, Soler throws in a big attack. What does the Flying American Eagle do? Well, Sepp Kuss goes right to the front because he's got Jonas Vingegaard and Primoz Roglic in this front group. So he knows if he can get to the finish, maybe Primoz Roglic has blazing speed and can win today's stage 3. Sepp Kuss goes straight to work. He's got everybody hurt and the groups are starting to string out again. But you see the second group back there still trying to come back up to the first group as it's coming into just about 1 kilometer to go, and they're wrapping up Soler. As Soler is getting wrapped up, the second group from behind is just coming up at about 900 meters to go to the front group. Sepp Kuss goes straight by Soler. Keeps setting hard tempo here at the front of the group until about 500 meters to go. Now let's back it up just to about 6 or 7, and let's see where Remco Evenepoel, Jonas Vingegaard, Primoz Roglic, they're at the back of that group of 9 back there, each keeping an eye on each other. Now let's fast forward, go back up to about 500 meters to go. You see it's Remco Evenepoel, the pseudo quick-step rider, that starts moving up on the right side. We get up to about 300 meters to go. Look over at the left, that's Marc Soler. He's looking back over his shoulder. He's giving the nod there because he's got Ayuso and he wants to lead him out because we're coming into the final 250 meters to go. As Soler starts looking forward, though, Remco Evenepoel beat it to it, jumped on the pedals, threw down the power. Jonas Vingegaard directly from Jumbo-Visma. He follows the attack of Remco Evenepoel. They fly in with about 150 meters to go into the last and final left bit. Remco Evenepoel, as they come out with 125 meters to go, gets on the accelerator, starts sprinting at 75 meters all the way through to 50, 25 meters to go, does one look back over his shoulder, realize he's gapped Jonas Vingegaard, the 2023 Tour de France, back-to-back Tour de France champion, can't hold the wheel of Remco Evenepoel. Remco Evenepoel pounds the chest, arms out, gives the little Godfather look, smile there of like, I am the Godfather. Then he comes across the line winning today's stage 3 and taking the race leader's red jersey. But there's a descent just afterwards. He's got a flag guy telling him, slow down, Remco. Man, you're the race leader here at the Vuelta. You got to slow down. Remco Evenepoel's getting on the brakes, but he's coming into the crowd. The guy in front of the female there, she's not paying attention, looking the other way as the guy jumps out of the way, and directly in front of her, Remco Evenepoel slams into the shoulder of the woman there, and both go flying. The lady goes spinning off, flying. Remco Evenepoel goes into the fences, lands on his back, bloodies his face all over the place, and he's thinking, man, Vuelta España organizers, why are you breaking my balls? Come on, guys. That's his words, not mine. He said it later in the press conference. Now let's back to film up, back to the finish line, because we had some other guys to talk about. Jonas Vingegaard, who did everything he could to follow the wheel there of Remco Evenepoel, will finish 1 second off the Belgian rider to finish second on the stage. Ayuso from UAE Team Emirates follows the wheel there of Jonas Vingegaard without getting a time gap, and Primoz Roglic finishes 4th on the stage. Now, up in the interview afterwards with Remco Evenepoel, he says his legs felt fantastic today. He also said they raced perfectly. They did not race perfectly. You want Jumbo-Visma on the front all day long as much as you possibly can. And if your legs were really that good, because when I break down today's stage, Primoz Roglic's legs doesn't look that good, so maybe the crash yesterday is hurting him a little bit, or maybe it's just the first real mountain stage here, the Vuelta España. You take your pick. But either way, if Primoz Roglic finished 4th on a stage today that wasn't really that hard going up the climb, it was 2 big climbs, but honestly, it didn't really start going hard until about 4.2 kilometers ago when Jay Vine went to the front and started drilling it. So when you're Remco Evenepoel, if your legs were fantastic, you let Jumbo-Visma blow through all of their guys so there's no Sepp Kuss to go up the road and attack and put other teams under pressure. Honestly, in today's stage, Remco Evenepoel, you got lucky you won today's stage, because when Sepp Kuss and Soler went up the road, that should have been the break that went all the way to the distance, because when you look back and you see the 7 chasers, Kian Utebrooks, remember I called him a knucklehead? Why were you chasing? Leonard Kamna was up the road already, and Vlasov, your race leader here for Bora Hansgrohe, was struggling on the back, sometimes off the back, sometimes back on and then back off. He did finish top 10 when it was all said and done on today's stage, but Vlasov was 100% at the max. So Kian Utebrooks, you never get on the front before pseudo quick-step. You don't get on the front before Movistar, and both those 2 riders in the front. And then you say, well, okay, Remco Evenepoel should have got on the front. Remco Evenepoel should never get on the front. They should have had that front big group that was chasing Sepp Kuss with Kian Utebrooks on the front. That should have slowed up. Then they let the second group on, and Jan Hertz should have been the rider that was on the front. When Movistar's Mas was actually closing the final gap up there to Soler and to Sepp Kuss, that was a mistake too. The last thing you want to do with 2 kilometers to go is be pulling 100%. That'll bring you all the way into about 1.5 when it all came back together, and then get attacked from Primož Roglič or Jonas Vingegaard. You never want to be on the front before Jonas Vingegaard or Primož Roglič has touched the front, and you definitely don't want to be on the front before Remco Evenepoel when you're going up a climb that's been pretty easy throughout the stage. Now, I want to break down some more details because Primož Roglič had a hard day, and like I said, it could be any reason why he had that, but he still managed to salvage today's stage and only lost 1 second. He's probably 37 seconds down on the general classification right now after that team time trial fiasco that they had on stage 1 from the race organizers, not the team. But when we look at Remco Evenepoel, when he's up there on the podium giving the interview saying, hey, my form's good, I'm ready for the next 3 weeks. Don't get too cocky. I love the interviews. Keep giving them all you can, but don't get too cocky, because the big mistake to do right now, you're in the race leader's red jersey, like I already said. Now your team theoretically has to control the pace, or that's what Quick-Step will be thinking. I'm thinking, you make Jumbo-Visma still control the pace left and right, or give the jersey away to another team so you don't have to ride. Because in today's stage, like I said, it was a fairly easy stage. Jan Hertz was still up there. James Knox was in and around the area. And Vervaeke was up there riding good. So Pseudo Quick-Step looked okay, but Jumbo-Visma looked better. So you don't want to get yourself in a scenario where you're drilling it with your whole team on the front here in these early stages, mountain stages of the Vuelta a España, while you're wearing the race leader's red jersey. And you absolutely do not want to think that today was a real mountain stage, because it wasn't. How do I know it wasn't? With 4.5 kilometers to go, there was a dude in a rain jacket running alongside the peloton there doing the same speed. And if that's happening and it's not single filed out and there's still 60 guys left with 4 kilometers to go, it couldn't have been that hard. And when you look up there at Leonard Kamna, they were always holding the peloton to the same time the whole time. So you know the pace at curb to curb in the peloton was not fast. So Remco Evenepoel, don't get cocky. Spectacular win. Congratulations. I love the Don poster up there at the finish where you're going looking at everyone thinking you are the next Godfather here, and then up until the crash anyways. But you got flying form. Congratulations. Spectacular stage to watch. If you guys get a chance, make sure you go watch the last 2 mountain passes with about 30 kilometers to go and check out all the details. Movistar made a mistake. DSM made a huge mistake riding for no reason whatsoever. UAE Team Emirates, you guys were knuckleheads for riding too much. And Keanu de Brooks, I was impressed with your legs, but you are a knucklehead. There's no doubt about it. Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.